Welcome to Contacto, brought to you by the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I'm Dr. Laura Murillo here with Dr. Steven Kleinberg. We're recording live at the Asia Society. Today, Dr. Kleinberg, welcome for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Laura. Great to be here.
Well, we're so excited to hear about your recent survey results. I know that you're partnering with the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Houston Partnership, HISD. We're here with a crowd of about 200 people. Tell us, in one sentence, what was your big takeaway on this latest survey?
Well, we've interviewed over 4,000 U.S.-born Latinos, 4,000 Latino immigrants, so we can ask the question, how are people doing? The basic belief that people have is that if Latinos only valued education the way Anglos do, there would be no problem. They could get and we can show that they clearly value education. They move out of the co-ethnic enclaves and develop close friendships with African Americans and Anglos and Asians. They learn English rapidly. The problems that they face in terms of education are not because of cultural differences, but because of poverty, because of the whole way that we structure access to quality education.
So there is a premium put on education by Hispanics. And the other thing I found interesting in your survey was that a large majority of them believe that hard work is also the key to success.
The classic Houston question, if you work hard in the city, eventually you will succeed. Anglos believe that at about 75%. Latino immigrants believe that at 88%. That belief that if you work hard, you can make it, that if you're not making it, it's because you're not trying as hard as you need to. So all the attitudes are there. Access to quality education is the key issue. Getting preschool education so these kids are ready to do well once they start kindergarten. Having access to, we tend to relegate kids from poor families to segregated, inner city, underfunded, overcrowded schools. That's the challenge. And the other big story, of course, is that this is the Houston future.
Yes.
Right, of everybody in Harris County under the age of 20, over half are Latinos and only 23% are Anglos.
Well, and as the saying goes, as go Hispanics, so goes Houston, and that couldn't be truer from your results.
Exactly right.
So for those people that may see your report and say, so this doesn't impact me, I'm just worried about hitting my goals for my corporation, I'm just worried about making sure my company's doing well, why should they care about this demographic and what this means to Houston?
Because that's a part of this remarkable, epic transformation that we're in the midst of as Anglos, increasingly the 76 million Anglo babies born in that period after World War II. 68, the leading edge are turning 68 this year. By 2030, the youngest of those 76 million babies will have turned 65, leaving the scene to a very different population.
A very young population
much
of Latinos.
Younger, much
27, isn't it that the median age?
The median age of all Anglos in Harris County, Texas is 42. The median age of all Latinos is 27.
And so that even has a very big impact as you look at voting patterns, doesn't it? In terms of Latinos and how much we're voting, and that older Americans seem to vote by a larger propensity. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. The reason why Latinos don't vote as much is that they are disproportionately young and disproportionately less educated. And those are the two demographic realities that make it where people need to be persuaded to vote. Whereas older Anglos with the higher levels of education vote no matter what. So that's a big part of what the future will eventually bring.
You also found some difference between the immigrants that are here in Harris County versus those that are native to this country. Help us talk about a little bit.
The beauty of this research is that we were able to ask questions about what happens to Latino immigrants the longer they're in this country, and then compare Latino immigrants with second-generation Latinos born in this country of immigrant parents and third generation, born in the United States, of parents, both of whom were also born in the United States. And there's where you see the real challenge. A stalled progress. The third-generation Latinos are not getting better jobs or more education than the second generation.
Why?
Because of failure to provide the support systems that are needed for people growing up in relative poverty to have access to the quality education that is critical in this new economy where education beyond high school is the centerpiece. And what is important to realize is that we ask people, in today's economy, do you think it's necessary to get an education beyond high school? Or are there many ways to succeed with no more than a high school diploma? Significantly more Latino immigrants said you've got to get education beyond high school than Anglos. So if they're not getting their education, it's not because they don't value education or understand its significance. It's access.
So the other very interesting dynamic is when my parents came here, jobs were jobs with a little technical savvy, but you could work hard. Today, the jobs are different. They do require post-secondary education, high school diploma certifications.
Right.
So the Hispanic Chamber, the Middle Skills, the Hispanic Chamber, the Community College, Greater Houston Partnership, all trying to work to make sure we're training and educating.
Not everybody has to go to a 4-year college, but everybody has to get education beyond high school if they hope to get decent jobs. The big employers in the 1970s during the oil boom years was Hughes Tool Company, Cameron Iron Works.
Gone.
No more.
They're gone.
That's right. So it's a fascinating sort of coming together of a set of revolutionary forces that have made the 21st century a different place than most of us thought it was going to be 20 or 30 years ago.
So for those people who fear change, are concerned about this change, give them some optimistic words in terms of your research and why you believe that this Latino dynamic can actually be a positive thing for Harris County.
Well, we become a nation of immigrants again. For 50 years, there was virtually no immigration. The last time we were a nation of immigrants was at the beginning of the 20th century. 15.9 million Italians, Greeks, Poles came, and the same fears were being expressed. They're never learning English. Their little Italies are forming, and we've discovered this extraordinary American story of all of us becoming Americans and new immigrants replenishing the American spirit and bringing all of the energy and vitality and belief and hard work into the country again. So it's happening once again, and what's interesting is that over time in our surveys, less antagonism toward immigration. And among Anglos, the most powerful predictor is age. Younger Anglos are perfectly comfortable with all this, they relish it.
They're married to Latinos.
That's right. Another thing that happens the longer you're here. But we older Anglos are having a lot of difficulty with all of a sudden these changes, just as we did when the last great wave of immigration came. So it's the American story, and there's reasons for lots of optimism. But the great question for Houston is, will the leaders of this city and the citizens make the investments to ensure that Latino and African American kids, who will be 70% of all the children under the age of 20 moving into adulthood, that they have access to the quality education, starting with at age 0 in preschool, through high school and into these middle level jobs or into colleges, to ensure that they're prepared to be the leaders and the voters and the citizens of Houston and of America in the 21st century.
And the truth is, with HISD as an example, 62% of all of the students are Hispanic.
Right.
And as a product of HISD, today, especially with the technology that is available in so many of the private schools, that technology gap is particularly hurtful to Hispanics, African Americans, and minorities.
Absolutely. And we're in an economy that is increasingly unequal, with poverty increasing even as wealth increases. Those are all the great challenges as we go forward.
But you seem hopeful. I see a twinkle in your eye that this is something that, once we've identified these issues, is, as you said, getting the entire community to rally behind this, being aware of the challenges, and then investing critical piece to it.
And our surveys show that this is just a wonderful community of extraordinary people who work very hard, who believe in themselves, believe in America, become American in much the same way as the Italians and the Greeks and the Poles. And we're in great shape if we can make those investments to ensure greater access to quality opportunities in the 21st century.
So one of the great criticisms of the Latino community is that we are here taking jobs, taking up Social Security, not investing, and just really that we're just this burden on society. That's not the case.
Of course not. No, and the reason why Houston is doing so well is because we become a magnet for the new immigration. Had we not been that magnet, Houston would have lost population. We would have the same fate as major cities in America that are losing their status as major cities because they never became magnets for the new immigration. Philadelphia, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Detroit, Cleveland. Houston is booming largely because of the tremendous energy, vitality, commitment to hard work of immigrants pouring into the city from all over the world.
So we are actually an added benefit, and once again, it's just managing the dynamic that this particular community brings to the city of Houston.
And I think the reason why there's been this growing positive attitude toward immigration in Houston is because we've had 30 years now of being a city of immigrants, able to recognize how much immigrants bring to the communities into which they move.
So as part of your study, I know we're here today, we have about 200 people from the community who are going to learn about the results, but you're also making sure that this survey is online, you're publishing it, you're taking it throughout the city to get this information out.
You bet. Absolutely, and just visit the website, kinder.rice.edu. You can download all of these reports. We're completing another report this summer on the African American and Anglo experiences, and then we're releasing in April the 34th annual study that has been tracking the remarkable transformations of Houston.
Well, and on behalf of our board of directors, Dr. Clymer, we thank you and your entire team. We appreciate all of the investments you've made in researching our community, the Houston community, and that's one of the reasons that we recognize it with our Chairman's Award.
Thank you so
just
much.
recently at our gala. You've been a part of our success when we began our strategic planning process. Our chamber has grown from one of the smallest chambers to the largest in the country, and I think it's the story of Houston, that we are a city, the epicenter of entrepreneurship. The people here today are community leaders, educators, and others, and as you mentioned, we need to work together to make sure Houston remains strong and vital. So thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll be right back with more here at the Asia Society with Dr. Stephen Kleinberg as we present to you the findings from his most recent survey. We'll be right back.
Beautiful, smooth, fierce. These are the toughest hands, breaking boundaries, shaping truths, storming the strongholds of disease. They belong to nurses, students, fighters, doctors, teachers, and pioneers. These are the hands of Baylor College of Medicine. These hands give life to possible.
It's a really great day for us to be here. You'll hear a great presentation from Steve Kleinberg, and then a wonderful panel discussion moderated by Professor Ruth Lopez Turley. Before we start, I just want to thank our co-sponsor, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, for helping us put this event together. This is an important day in the sense that, as you know, the Kinder Institute is intended not only to be a think tank and a place where we identify issues, we research issues, but also a place where we work with all of you to identify how to deal with those issues and to take action moving forward to make Houston a better city. And now I'd like to turn it over to our co-sponsor from the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Dr. Lara Murillo.
Our thanks to the Kinder Institute for partnering with the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. For many years, our Chamber of Commerce has been at the forefront of advocacy. We also have been at the forefront with our elected officials and others as it relates to policy. The importance of policy and how that impacts our community is crucial. Today's event is just one of the many activities that our Chamber puts together to make sure that you, our members, and the community can work together. That the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is prepared to be at the table. We are at the table. We need to continue this dialogue. As you will see from the study that's being presented today, those findings indicate that the future of Houston is dependent upon Hispanics. As go Hispanics, so goes Houston. Today's results are vital and critically important. As we put together the guest list today, we made sure to reach out to non-Latinos. We know our story. We are our story. We need you to understand the important role that each of us play to make sure that Latinos are successful. Because in that, Houston will be successful. And as Dr. Kleinberg pointed out this morning, America is looking at Houston and what we do with this demographic. And we will either invest and educate our community or we all will suffer. Now, there are skeptics who say, this doesn't impact me. I'm a CEO, I have my corporation, I just want to make sure I hit my bonus at the end of the quarter. We have to help educate those people who do not believe this impacts them. It does. And the first step, as an example, is our chamber. We are the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, but come to any one of our functions and at least 30 to 40% of the attendees are non-Hispanic. Our board of directors, 40% are non-Hispanic. We don't need to talk amongst one another. We need to work together. We need to move outside of our comfort zone. Our Chamber of Commerce has invested in young leaders, emerging leaders who are here with us this morning. So we need to make sure that we invest in those who will be leading us. And the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is prepared to do so. So on behalf of our board of directors, the staff, we thank Dr. Kleinberg, the entire Kinder Institute, Rice University, for being with you today. Thank you.
My name is Ruth Lopez Turley, and I'm the Associate Director for Research for the Kinder Institute. I'm a professor of sociology at Rice University. So for this portion of the event, we're going to have a panel discussion. What are the main systemic barriers for that halted progress among U.S.-born Hispanics?
I'd start by saying that specifically, what we have found at the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is that we're working very closely with community colleges. And we are in a point where it is vital that these young Latinos and students in general prepare with an education, whether it's a 2-year, 4-year, a certification, for actual jobs. While we love that they are interested in all of these other areas, we must connect them directly to jobs. The other factor is parents. Latino parents are Spanish-speaking. The culture is that of a family unit. So we're working closely, as an example, with Lone Star College. They have put together an extraordinary package, which is very easy to read, provides students with an understanding of how long it's going to take you to either get a certificate, a 2-year degree, what that job is, what the need is out there, and how much you can earn. And so I think that's critical, that we prepare families, not individuals, as Latinos, to go through these programs. The work that's being done, for example, at AMA, yes, Prep and KIPP Academy, all essential to the success of Latinos. Also essential is an investment. When we look at investments across the board, whether it's in foundations or it's individual contributions, the investments in Latino education is significantly less than. We're expected to do more with less. And so the investments that philanthropists and others make in this community is vital, critical, essential.
We need those resources. Going back to the work of the Chamber, we believe that we must educate our own, and that's why we've established this Emerging Leaders Program. People said it's not necessary, it's duplicative. Latinos are already educated. My parents crossed the Rio Grande with a second-grade education. I sit here before you but for education, a product of HISD. It's because of education. And there are very specific things that we can do, and the Chamber of Commerce is prepared to do those things, specifically making sure that people transition from high school into some type of education. And those who are graduating from college, that we prepare them for leadership roles to make sure that Houston is prepared with strong leaders. And that once again, we do not isolate ourselves. That in fact, that we work together so that we can make a stronger Houston.
Again, it's such a pleasure to be here. Let me start by thanking the Kinder Institute for commissioning this work and facilitating this discussion. Of course, it's the Greater Houston Partnership, and I'll just one little bit of definition. You know, we define our role as being to help make Houston a great place to live, work, and build a business. And that's, you know, intended to be a broad statement of caring about how Houston develops as a city. Increasingly, though, we see our role as being a convener of issues, around issues that are important to this community, and that cuts across business and non-business lines and across all ethnicities. As we've looked at this issue and thought about the work that Stephen has done, my first order take is, as Stephen says, this has dispelled some of the myths that would suggest that somehow the Hispanic community is on a different trajectory, completely different trajectory than perhaps other ethnic groups. And in reality, it's on a similar trajectory. That's the good news and the bad news. The bad news is, in our economy today, low-income individuals across ethnic lines find it harder and harder to progress up the economic ladder that we've all taken for granted throughout our lifetimes. So what we're looking at the partnership is, what is it about our system, both our economic system and our education system, that is contributing to this mismatch, to the mismatch that Laura alluded to. And let me touch on that just for a minute more. And I'm not going to go into the solutions in this particular set of remarks because I know I'll have another chance. But this fundamental notion that increasingly our economy does not value the low-skilled jobs like it once did, and it doesn't create the pathways from low-skilled jobs to middle-skilled jobs and upper-skilled jobs like it once did. And so today we say that 60% or more of the jobs being created in Houston require at least some post-secondary education or credential, and yet many of our young people are not completing even high school, much less a post-secondary credential. In fact, this data would suggest statewide that only roughly 21% of Texan youth are completing any form of post-secondary credential. So we've got this huge mismatch in our economy between the jobs we're creating and a system, if you will, and patterns of behavior that are contributing to low educational attainment. Now, somewhere the directional answer is, I don't think we're going to change the economy in one sense. I think the fact that jobs today require skills beyond a strong back is just inherent in today's economy. We're not going to change that aspect. So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're creating a system that leads people to develop the appropriate skills.
80.4% of students in HISD are economically disadvantaged. When you look at the figures of 80-20, that figure comes up again when you're looking at the SAT scores. 20% of HISD students meet benchmark on the PSAT and SAT, and 80% do not. So it's that 80-20 figure that reappears once again. But the system is broken, and we have to come up with a new way to have honest, meaningful, realistic assessments, and also invest in schools that are overcrowded and underfunded. But then on top of that, we also have to look at areas of town that have not had economic investment in years, the ones on the footsteps of downtown that lack a bank, a grocery store, a church. The schoolhouse is now a source of social support services for our children. But we need to rebuild and reinvest in all our communities in Houston for things to really turn around.
Fundamental reality, no force in the world will stop Houston or Texas or America from becoming more Latino, more African American, more Asian, and less Anglo. as the 21st century unfolds. So the only question that our generation has been given is, okay, how do we make this work? How do we ensure that this ethnic diversity becomes the enormous strength that it can be, especially for a city like Houston, the second largest port in the country, the gateway to the global economy, and ensure that it doesn't end up tearing us apart and becoming a major liability, reducing rather than enhancing our competitiveness in the global economy of the 21st century.
25 years ago, we founded Amegy Bank with very modest beginnings.
We even assembled our furniture right out of the box.
Our goals were simple: hire the best bankers and give Texas businesses
And their families.
the kind of banking relationship they deserve.
Today, Amegy Bank is 2,000 bankers strong.
With $14 billion in assets.
And that's great because I don't have to put furniture together anymore.
Amegy Bank of Texas.
PA Bank.
On behalf of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, we thank you for joining us here at Asia Society with Dr. Kleinberg, Rice University, the Kinder Institute. The Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is happy to be part of today's presentation. We thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Contacto. Have a great day.